The accident you are about to watch is one of the most surprising ones for me. Even though I have talked about dozens of accident videos, it is also one of the most obvious examples of aviation's inflexibility. It happened in Africa and became a hot topic in the media when the cause of the accident became known. The story of the Filair plane is based on official accident reports and eyewitness accounts. On August 25, 2010, we are going to a Wednesday. This plane belonging to Filair was going to make domestic flights between the cities of the Congo Democratic Republic, which is a very large country in Central Africa. The plane that was to take off from Kinshasa would first arrive in Kiri, second stop in Bakoro, third intermediate stop Semendua, fourth intermediate stop Bandundu, and finally arriving at Ndolo Airport in the capital Kinshasa. The pilots would start this regular flight in the morning, travel to various regions of the country, and return to their base towards the evening. The 62-year-old Belgian pilot Danny was sitting in the captain pilot seat. In the right seat was 39-year-old British co-pilot Chris Wilson. The British pilot's family did not want the pilot to fly in Africa, thinking that it was not safe for him to fly there, but the British pilot still preferred to work to complete his flight hours. The pilots had completed their first 3 intermediate stops. At each stop, they were boarding and disembarking passengers and cargo and continuing on their way. At Bandundu Airport, which was the last flight of the day, they checked in for their 4th and final flight. They started taxis to go to the runway. Let's take a quick break. We've put a lot of effort into this video, so if you find it informative, please remember to subscribe and like. Your support allows us to create more content for you. Let's talk a little bit about the company that will perform the flight. Filair, a company based at Ndolo Airport. It was a small company operating under the umbrella of the Democratic Republic of Congo and operating regional flights. The company was banned from flying over European Union airspace because it was blacklisted at the time. Until that day, the company's fleet included a twin-engine propeller Antonov An-24 and 2 Czech-made LET-L410 turbojet aircraft. One of these 2 L-410 turbojets was to make the flight that day. The twin-engine propeller aircraft was built in 1991. It was almost 20 years old. This may sound like a lot, but the reliability of the aircraft is determined by the maintenance performed rather than its age. The company had procured the aircraft in its fleet from the USA and Europe. The aircraft was versatile and was used in various fields of general aviation, from cargo transportation to passenger transportation and even parachute jumps. It had a maximum capacity of 21 passengers with 2 pilots and 19 passengers. It was purchased 1 year ago from a European company, and before that it frequently flew in Eastern Europe. After the sale, it continued to fly non-stop in Africa. This is one of the worst scenarios that can happen to airplanes when they lie on the ground and do not fly. It is simply a machine that does not work. But this airplane, although old, was always actively working and maintained. 18 passengers, 1 cabin crew member, and 2 pilots boarded the plane. Aligned at the runway, the pilots gave full power to both engines. When they reached the takeoff speed, they cut the wheels off the runway. They started to rise towards the sky. The takeoff was going smoothly. The pilots had followed a circular route that day. They were flying over the Congo, so to speak, like a bus transport. The first 3 flight legs went smoothly. They were dropping off passengers at one airport and picking up passengers in a short period before heading to the next destination. As we mentioned, everything went smoothly. There was no overhead baggage compartment for passengers' cargo on board. This is an important point and the point that will give investigators the most critical clue about the accident. Passengers with cargo were putting their cargo in the space at the back of the passenger seat in the last row. A passenger from Semendua Airport had boarded the plane with a large duffel bag in his hand. He put this strange large bag in the cargo compartment of the plane at the back of the passengers. You may be wondering how such a passenger could have entered the airport without inspection and put the suspicious baggage in the back of the plane. There are uncontrolled airports in Africa and many other parts of the world. The airport where this passenger boarded did not even have a paved runway. We can easily confirm from the satellite image on the screen that there was no asphalt runway. In this region, pilots take off and land on dirt, so there was no security or supervision around the airfield. Even the passengers' baggage was not checked. They were planning the operation like a real bus operation. But unfortunately, aviation does not accept this kind of lack of supervision. This lack of supervision is the main reason for what they are about to experience. The entire flight was uneventful from takeoff. They were very close to their destination airport. The pilots did their descent checks and started to glide and give altitude. The pilots lowered their flaps by 1 level and then lowered their landing gear. They continued to glide and give altitude. They were now in the final approach phase of the runway. They were approaching the runway from the west of the airport. At this time, screaming and shouting sounds started coming from the passengers. All the passengers were panicked. They were running from side to side in the already small cabin. Finally, when all the passengers clustered in the front left side of the plane because of what they feared, the center of gravity of the plane was disturbed. The pilots could not understand what had happened. At this point, the plane suddenly started banking to the left. The pilots did not even have time to warn the passengers to take their seats. The plane was banking to the left and rapidly descending steeply. Within seconds, meters from the runway, the twin-engine plane crashed with 21 people on board. The plane crashed into a mud brick house with a straw roof in a residential area. Fortunately, the owners were not at home at the time and no one from the settlement was killed. Here are the photos of the wreckage. 19 of the 21 people on board died on the spot as a result of the accident. 1 person died in the hospital where he was taken. Only 1 person managed to survive. There was no explosion or fire when the plane crashed. Under normal conditions, in such accidents, the fuel in the plane is expected to catch fire by burning. When there was no fire, investigators first thought that the accident was caused by a lack of fuel. Fortunately, thanks to the statements of the only survivor, they were able to determine the strange cause of the accident. For the cause of the accident, we need to go back to the large bag loaded on the plane and its owner. In Africa, it is common to see people carrying animals such as chickens on airplanes, but the animal in this passenger's bag was completely different. According to the survivor's testimony, close to their landing, the bag behind them suddenly started to move and a crocodile came out of it. The plane had indeed brought a live crocodile on board. The owner of the crocodile reportedly wanted to carry the reptile to another city to sell it. When the crocodile that came out of the bag started to move in the cabin aisle, it caused panic among the passengers. When the cabin attendant realized the situation, he ran to the cockpit to inform the pilots. As the cabin attendant rushed forward, the passengers in the back of the plane suddenly started to pile towards the front of the plane. Weight and balance calculations are made before the planes take off. Even the seating arrangements of the passengers and the sections where the cargo is loaded are selected accordingly. The main reason for this accident is that people leave their seats and pile forward and the center of gravity of the plane is distorted. As you may have come across, passengers' seat numbers can be changed from time to time in passenger planes for the convenience of the center of gravity. If your seat number has been changed without consulting you, this is most likely due to center of gravity calculations. If we go back to the accident, the pilots who lost control of the movement of the passengers had nothing to do from that moment on. The center of gravity of the aircraft shifted forward and the nose was pulled down. In short, the crocodile came out of the bag, causing panic and a change in the center of gravity of the passengers, resulting in the loss of 20 lives. Perhaps the most tragic part of this accident was that they would have been on the ground in seconds, only 1 kilometer from the runway. The locals pulled the crocodile that caused the panic out of the wreckage alive. The crocodile that caused the panic was 2 to 3 meters long. How a crocodile of this size was loaded into the cargo, and how it was not noticed when it was loaded was another question mark. This accident, which I was quite surprised when I first heard about it, has written its name among the accidents that will not be forgotten. In memory of the 20 people who lost their lives because of the crocodile on the plane.